Frank. Good.
All right. So, as you know, a lot of us are using this as a finance tool. And during month end, there's a lot of times then when you want to try and create a document, it defaults to today's date. Now, there's a way to default that date to your month end date. That is called the business date. For example, well, in April the 1st, so if you want to default that date to 31st of March, just click up to the business date, click here, click OK. So that will default to today's date, 31st of March. So when you create a new document, for example, maybe a bill, the date will default to that business date up here. And this business date is only for your session. It doesn't impact on your colleague. And once you log out and log back in, you'll go back to today's date, which is the 1st of April. So this is one very quick tip to help you to make your data entry more efficient so that you don't have to keep changing your date. So the next thing that would help you with your efficiency is, you know how every time when you try and remember the things that you have entered like yesterday or maybe earlier, you can't remember which document you're entering or which profile you're looking at. There is a button up here, which is the recently used button. You can see all the recent documents that I've looked through, that I've clicked. It records up to 500 transactions that you have looked. So the last thing that I looked at was this invoice. So I can click right here and go to that invoice straight away. So this will be helpful instead of like searching for the document that you've entered or what you have looked at. You can go straight to the document without any problems. And you can see I have looked at this supplier recently as well, and it goes back. Now, if let's say I'm in the middle of working that kit specification, so let's say you're working on this kit specification and you want to come back to it, you can always click on that recent transactions and click the favorite here. So once you click the favorites, you can come back to it. And when you do something else and when you come back, you can see that it's recorded as a favorite record right on the right-hand side. You don't have to go and search for it. It's there for you. Now, the left-hand side, all the transactions are divided into the different record types. So as you can see, I've looked at 18 invoices. I've looked at AP documents. You have the bills that I've looked at for the last entered or looked at for the last 500 transactions. I've looked at customer classes. So it's all divided over here for your convenience. Now, for the records, for example, you're working on that bill. You can also click on the favorite button over here. So I was looking at AP bill. That bill is what I'm looking at. Again, once you come back to it, you can see that the bill is recorded here. Now to take it off, just untick that star. I hope you find that really useful. This is one of the very unutilized area, and it is really useful for people who are doing data entry. The next thing that I want to show you is generic inquiries. Basically, when you look at, for example, invoices and memos, this is what we call a generic inquiry. Now, sometimes the columns here have additional columns that you do not need. For example, I have original retention, I have unreleased retention, retention document. These columns are not needed. So I can click up to the column configuration up here. And the right-hand side are the columns that's on the screen. And all you can do is just click on that, move it to the left, like so. And if there are columns that you want to look on screen, for example, the created by user, move it to the right. And you can move this up and down and click OK. So that screen is now customized to your liking. Now, if you are the administrator of your company and you want to make this a default across the company, all you need to do is go up to Tools and share the column configuration. So we're sharing the results of that page and click Next. Now, we will set this as a default for everyone. If you do not want to set default for everyone, you can untick this and basically share that column configuration to either a group of users, like a role, for example, AR clerk, and you can just tick everyone in AR clerk, or if you just click on, just leave that blank, it will show everyone in the list, and you can just tick the person that you want to share that configuration to. So that configuration will be shared to those people. And to revert back to the original or default, you can reset to default by clicking the column configuration and click the Reset to Default button. And that will bring you back to the original configuration. Now, if there are columns that you need and it's not on the screen, you can ask your consultant, because most of the time the columns can be added to the transaction to this screen through customization under the Edit Generic Inquiry. The next thing I want to share would be filters. So, for example, this is invoice and memos, and I have like different closed invoices as well that you really do not need to see anymore because they have been paid by the customer. There's no need to look at it anymore. So what you can do is to filter the status, for example. If you do not want to see, for example, closed ones, voided ones, incomplete, canceled ones, and click OK. So that is now filtered. But that means that you have to come in here, do the filter all the time. But you can save that filter by clicking the Save button up here. And you type in a title, open and balance, maybe. So if you want to, as administrator, you can share this filter to your colleagues by clicking the Share configuration. Now, only the administrator can share that configuration to the colleagues in the company. So now you would have a tab called Open and Balanced. So if you have a more complex criteria, for example, let's go to bills and adjustments. So every generic inquiry screen, you can do all these filters. As long as you can see that filter here in the Save button, you can do that filter. So I'm going to use this filter settings to give me a more complex filter. So what you need to do is to add the conditions of this filter. So this filter, let's say I want it to be open status. And then I want to say open or. Now, because I'm using or, I'll have to add a bracket in there, click another condition, go down to the status, open or balanced. So I'll close that bracket, and maybe in the bills that is entered by myself. So I'll go to created by. Now you can specifically choose a person, but that is not useful. There is a formula where you can use @me that will say the person who logged in. So if I click save, open and balanced bills. Because it's done by the person who logs in, I'll put a my open and balance bills in front there and click apply. Now you have a tab that shows my open and balance bills. So as administrator, you can also share that to your colleagues and make it a default. That means that when someone opens the bills and adjustments, that tab will be the default tab, but you need to remember to click the save button. And apply. All right. I hope you find those tips useful. I'll have other tips, which is pivot tables. Now, pivot tables, normally you would export your, let's say, a list of transactions and to Excel, and then you work on a pivot table. What I'm going to show you is an easy way to use the pivot tables in Acumatica so that you don't have to do that and you can get the information right from your screen. To do that, click on the ellipse here and click Save as Pivot. Now, I'm going to, I'm going to click a new one anyway. So, sorry, bear with me. It's just my screen is not responding. All right. I'll start that again. So I'm going to click Save as Pivot, give it a name, sales by customer class by month. Again, you can share that with your colleagues by clicking the shared configuration, click OK. Now, this will be a simple thing to just drag and drop the fields onto the pivot table. I'm going to start with customer class. Then I'm going to add the customer name. And with the columns, I want it to be the date of the transaction. Now, with the values, I've got a column called sales amount, and I'll add it as the value I want to see. Now, with that date, if I do not change anything, you will see that it would display every date of the transactions, which is not useful. So what you want to do is click on the cog, click on that date, and what you want to do is round the date by, let's say, months. So the system will group them by month. And if I click the cog again, you can see now it's done monthly. But again, this may not be too useful because it's going to bring up everything from day one since you use the system. So what you want to do is to filter the date by clicking on the top here. Now, instead of putting a specific date, you can use this button up here to specifically say, for example, the year start date. And that date here could be today's date. Now you have the option to put the quarter start or the month start. Really depends on how you want to see the pivot table. As you can see, I've got a pivot table now. You can also adjust the column width by going to the cog. Now the name usually is long and 100 would be not enough. I'll increase that to 300. And the customer class, I'll just increase that to 150. Save that. And I'll click the cog again. And you can export this to Excel. Now, another part of the system that you probably would have used, which is the global search, but normally you search things like the menus, but you can actually search for a number of things. For example, if you want to search anything that has ABC in it, you can go to transactions and profiles, but it will show you everything: customer, supplier, sales order, shipment that has ABC, which is the customer name or the supplier name. You can actually fine-tune your search by clicking in the front and say, I want to look at customer ABC. That will just bring up the profile of the customer. So if you want to see the supplier, now there is a trick to supplier, because if you type supplier, it will not appear, because in this Acumatica, they have not converted the name. It should be called vendor ABC. It will show the vendor, which is the supplier. So that is a trick on that part. Now, in terms of transactions, I'll go to invoices and memos just to do an example. So let's say I want to look at all records, and I'm going to look at anything that's not empty. And if I want to search for, let's say, the March 2025 description, it will show me AP bills here with anything that has the March 2025. With one caveat with the search is you normally do not want to search words that has like 4 in the with those are like common words that the system doesn't really search for. So you want to search for words that, for example, in the description, urgent ABC. You can see over here, urgent for ABC. If I just type urgent for ABC, it will not appear because of this 4 in here. What you want to do is leave out all these words so that you can easily find the description. If you do want to use a specific string, you have to use the inverted commas so that it search for that full string, and then you'll be able to find it. So just be careful if you want to search, just leave out all these small little words and just use the main words. Otherwise, you have to use inverted commas. There are also situations, sometimes you, let's say, entered a bill and you forgot whether you have entered it into the system and attached it. What you can do is you can use the search to find the files as well. I'll just go into here to show you I've loaded a few bills. And I'll just clear the filter there. So I've got, for example, this Verizon bill March 2025. If I do not know whether I've entered that bill or not, I can type in there. Now, the best thing is you use a wildcard to say basically everything, and then PDF. If you go to files, that's going to search the Verizon. And because it's got underscore and space, so it is better to use a percentage, which is the wildcard, and then, for example, PDF. So another example would be, if you look at this bill here, it says test at 2025-0401 PDF. So I can do the search as sample percentage PDF and go to the files. So that bill has been attached to the bill in Acumatica. Now you can go into that document by clicking the entities and view entity. That will bring you to the source of where that file is. I hope you find all these tips pretty useful. You can use it right now. We will have a session later to let you know what's coming in the future.